All right, we're going to talk today about something super important, marketing to change your money mindset, because this is one of the things that can transform your vision of your business and your outcome and your happiness and the results you get from your marketing. I've got one of the absolute experts, best-selling author Leisa Peterson. Lisa, say hi.
Hello.
And she's the author of a new book, The Money Catalyst. We'll talk about that, how she's using story inside the book to transform people's mindsets. We'll talk about the wake methodology that will transform your experience with money and how to make sure your business vision is the real vision for you. All this on the Garlic Marketing Show. But of course, one of the best ways to make sure your vision is lined up with the people that you're working with is to find the best case stories. Go to videocasestory.com/finder, where we'll help you find those stories that are the best stories to line up with your vision. All right, let's get started.
My name is Gino Wickman. I was introduced to Ian, and that's what brought me into this video world and got me embracing this video world. And Ian did exactly what I hoped. He got me really comfortable with putting videos out to the world and having a great strategy around putting videos out to the world, because there's so much more than just shooting a video. And so the way that he positions those videos, optimizes those videos, he's done a great job.
All right. I'm excited to be here. And I'm excited to have you and talk about this. I think, part of my goal with the Garlic Marketing Show is make people realize how important marketing is for every part of their life. And not just to make money, but also to change, like what we ingest changes how we think. And this is fantastic because people have so many, I know I do, and I know so many people do that have weird thoughts about money. And let's talk a little bit about what the Money Catalyst talks about. Give me a quick summary of what it does, and let's talk about how what drove you to write this.
The Money Catalyst is a follow-up to my nonfiction book. And what I realized in writing this book 5 years ago is that our attention spans are short, like getting shorter and shorter. And the power of story is really underneath all of this. Even my previous book, I realized that people struggle in their relationship with money. Not everyone, but a lot of people do. And I'm an expert, not just around money mindset, but also I was a financial advisor. I was a mortgage banker. I've worked with people in money for 30 years now. And I wanted to create an experience where someone could come in and feel seen by the book. And what I mean by that is when they read about it, they're like, oh my gosh, like I thought I was the only one who struggled with these things. And so by bringing them into a story, my hope is that I could help people transform aspects of their relationship with money in a more beneficial way. And I'm just obsessed with that anyways, but this is a new way to do that.
I love it. And um, what was the catalyst for the Money Catalyst? Like, was there a moment you're like, I have to write about this in a story-based moment? Did any of these stories happen?
Yeah, totally. So, almost 2 years ago, I took my client who had inspired my first book to Paris to thank her for helping me because she opened her whole life to me, and I wrote about that. And we're in Paris, and she's never been to Paris. She's never been to Europe. She had really struggled in her relationship with money, which is why she found her way to me. And I thought I was going to be showing her this like incredible trip. And it was a juxtaposition in that the way that she approached Paris, particularly for the first time, it was somewhere I had been before. It ignited in me an understanding of abundance at a completely different level. And I kind of felt different when we were in Paris, but it wasn't until I was coming home. I flew first class and I was in my beautiful Polaris bed, really enjoying the experience. And this movie came on called Living by Bill Nighy. He was nominated for an Oscar in this performance. And he's living this very scarce life, and he gets a notification right from his doctor. They just got like 90 days to live. And something about the fact that he had been living scarcely, it's what I teach about. I'm in this ridiculously comfortable, bed on this plane. And I realized that Jenny had awakened me to a whole different way of living, that even I, self-made millionaire and living the life, like I missed it. And I couldn't believe it. And I came home, and for the next year, I lived according to this new mindset. Like I just said, I'm going to try doing things differently. We can get into that. And it was a year later when my publisher invited me to write a book about abundance, and they wanted it to be a nonfiction book. And I started writing. And at first I was like, I just need to write this story about what happened in Paris, just a short little story. And I shared it to my community, and they were like, well, what happens next? Like, this is so good. What happens next? And I'm like, I don't know. And so it became a full book just from that spark.
That's really cool, and that's amazing. So when you say, I think in the certain crowds, abundance and scarcity, it's they're words that are kind of tossed around. But when you say, you were living scarce in scarcity, and you transform this, define those for me: abundance and scarcity.
Scarcity, there's lots of ways to think of it. I love using the playing not to lose versus playing to win. The experience that shows up for many of us is like, maybe going to a restaurant and noticing that you have a pattern of like picking the things that are most affordable on the menu rather than the thing that you really want, or always talking yourself down from the thing. And it might not be money related. It might just be like time related, because time is our most precious resource, right? So instead of like, I just got back from New Zealand, and when I go to New Zealand, like it's not pleasant flying there and back. Like I'm going to go as long as I possibly can go. So we go at least 3 weeks when we go there. Like, people try to do it in 10 days, and I'm like, I don't know how. But that's compressing. That's like shrinking, rather than saying, what would I need to do to make this vacation 3 weeks instead of 1 week? Or, those are the examples of scarcity. Does that make sense?
It does. No, it does. I mean, yeah, the scarcity. I mean, I know so many people that look at that way, and trip over nickels, to getting to dollars, right? And that scarcity mindset. But and then let's talk abundance, because when you brought in this abundance mindset, what were some of the things that you did different? Because I know you talk about a lot of them in the book, but what were some of the activities that you did different that affected your life in that next year?
It was starting on the idea that maybe the patterns, my automatic pattern system with money was actually, it was glitchy. Like it wasn't reliable. And I needed to start questioning every assumption that oriented to, is this going to make my life more enjoyable, fulfilled, meaningful? Or am I just doing this because there's a box to check, or there's some idea that I'm supposed to do these things? Like constantly questioning, why am I making this decision? And is it going to lead to more joy? That would be the beginning of the process. And so I started doing that. Like I had been invited to speak in Bali, and I was super excited about it. And again, I was like, if I'm going, I'm going to make it almost a month long. Even though I was only speaking for like 1 hour, like I'm like, how can I make this bigger? So a few months after Paris, I went to Bali. Another thing that happened in Bali was about risk taking, because I feel like abundance has a lot to do with risk taking and like moving past your fears. I ride motorcycles in the US. I have a motorcycle license. But when I got to Bali, I was like, these people are crazy. There's no way I'm going to ride a motorcycle or anything else. Like, I don't even want to be on the back of one. Well, sure enough, a group of the people at the event I was speaking at they were all guys, and one gal and me decided to rent scooters to go all around Bali. And I was like, oh, this is like the craziest thing. And we did it. And at the end of the day, we had driven all over. And there were some hairy, like very scary moments where I was stuck in the middle of the intersection. Like, I don't know that I'm going to live. And at the end of the day, the sun's setting. We're like riding these scooters through the rice fields, and it was just like the most magical experience. And I remember thinking, this is an abundant life. Like, this is the epitome. But I had a lot of work that I had to question to be able to get here.
Yeah. And when you're talking about the work to do, but also, I love the fact that you have this story-based book to help transform people's ideas about money and to help them transform out of that. What were some of the tools that you were using to help shift you away from your scarce thoughts to abundant thoughts?
The first one is awareness, which we've kind of talked about. Like, you got to be aware that it's even happening to you. And then the next phase is also noticing your nervous system, because a lot of the times that we're in scarcity, it's because we are feeling fearful, we're feeling contracted. And so, in the book and in my own life, mindfulness practice, contemplation, questioning, like, well, what does that feel like in my body, right? A somatic experience of scarcity or a somatic experience of abundance, you've got to become familiar with what those look like and feel like for you before you're going to make any changes. And so in the book, you know, the main character meets a mentor, and the mentor is introducing her to this technique called awake, where every time something isn't working right or she's facing struggles, they return back to this practice. But every time they do it, it looks different. It's not the same thing, but it's the same foundation. It's just a different application that helps her reach a better conclusion of, like, okay, what am I going to do about this problem?
So tell me a little bit more about that and how it evolves, like, and what that awake is. What is that action?
hmm So it stands for awareness, willingness. Oh my gosh, I knew I was going to do this. I have to look at my book. Like, it's you write about it for a year, and then you're like, wait, what is it? Appreciation, kindness, and embodiment. And so what you're doing is you're, like I said, becoming aware, willingness. Like, am I actually willing to look at this experience with a new perspective? Right? Because many times we're so stuck in what's going on. We're like, I'm actually not willing. And it's not really worthwhile to, like, do anything after that. So the next is appreciation, gratitude. Like, what is good about what's happening here, if you can find it, to again be more calm in your body. And then kindness. If you recall in the book, what I noticed, because I've been working with hundreds, if not thousands, of people and their money challenges, many times people are not kind to themselves when it comes to their past with money. They
Hmm.
judge themselves. They're not compassionate. They're not even respectful in the words that they use and how they talk to themselves with that inside voice. And so kindness has a lot to do with giving yourself permission to believe that you are actually doing the best that you can. And the reason you know that is because that's what happened. So it's giving yourself grace. And then finally, embodiment, which is like, okay, I feel good in this moment. Now I can go. Now I'm out of scarcity mindset. Like, awake is taking you out of scarcity mindset. Now you can, like, go make a decision from a place of, like, neutrality at the very least.
You know, this really is interesting to me on a lot of levels. I want to talk a little bit about abundance visualization, because you talk a little bit about that in there. But because when I work with clients and we talk about their vision, and it seems like they're really unwilling to dream big, but like even dive deep into like what this will mean to their life. And how so as you did this stuff and you personally did it, and like you grew in this word of abundance, and I know it sounds weird to people, somewhere to people that aren't doing it,
Yeah.
but it's true. It's a different mindset, a mindset of being open, which allows you to make better decisions, bigger decisions. How did your personal vision change?
My personal vision changed in a few significant ways. Number one, in the understanding that we have no idea when our last day may come. I'm just going to be really frank. Like, I've lost my parents really early in life. I'm older than either of them when they died. Uh, my husband recently had cancer and he's doing great now, but the preciousness of life is a turning point, I guess. But what I have witnessed is that when we don't break out of these patterns, we tend to live a far smaller life. So, what's the opposite? The opposite is realizing that money is actually a lot smaller of an aspect of our happiness than we ever talk about. We have been trained that it's all about the money. And while money is important and we need to have it, and we've got issues like inflation and houses and cars and all of those things, like I'm never going to deny that. But we've got the relationship with them in the wrong order. And what I found is that, like, my husband and I'll give you an example. We have been thinking about buying like some kind of camper or something to go camping and traveling more in. And what we want is pretty expensive. And we've been developing real estate and we have a high like net worth, but putting the cash towards that thing is not like, it's not there yet. Like, it's coming, but it's not there yet. And if I were to focus just on that thing that I want, or I went and bought it before it was really needed, it's not going to bring me the happiness that I'm wanting from the experience. However, we have his truck set up so that we do a very rustic form of camping, which is quite comical. But I'll tell you, both of us sleep better in this setup that we have that is just, my daughter has this great camper and she's 27, we're 58 and we don't have it. It just cracks me up, but we sleep so good and we can go wherever we want. And we're not hung up on this idea that it's got to look a certain way. We're like, we're just in it for the joy. We're in it for the play. We're in it for the, like, it will come. But right now, we're going to make everything awesome no matter what. And that is, to me, is an abundance mindset. It's not about having everything. It's about, what are you doing with what you have?
I love that. Oh, I love that, and because it changes how you make decisions, right? And because I see this a lot, where I mean, way too much. And when I say a lot, I would say probably like 80 to 90% of, especially like when I'm coaching like small business owners, agency owners, is they say they're going to be happy one day when they scale to a certain size, have a certain amount of wealth coming in. And it's like you said, it's, you don't know if that day's ever like you're ever going to make it another day. But B, it's always moving the goalpost. And then you always want more and more and more. And you're not happy. And then you make weird decisions, bad decisions, and then you end up in a bad place, don't you?
Totally. And this is exactly what you're saying, is why Lawrence, so Mirabelle is the main character, Leela is her sidekick, and Lawrence is an early character that comes into the story because he's had all this success and yet he has a very different message to her about, like, you got to be really careful about this journey because you can get trapped in all of these sort of trappings of life, like checking the boxes, 5 million, 10 million, 20 million, 50 million, like none of it was having the impact. And meanwhile, his life was sort of being ransacked by all the work that he was, possessed with. And so he needed to come in and kind of be like, hey, there's some things that you should know early on before you even decide what this thing called abundance is. Like, let's just examine our life and the culture that we've been trained around.
And no, and especially if you get into circles, which I know a lot of people have, we get more siloed now. And I know it's everyone's looking at what everyone else has, and it's a lack of happiness. So, and it's really, I think about this because, go down, I was in Miami recently on someone's boat. It was a really nice yacht. And there's always going to be a bigger yacht, right? always going to be a big, no matter what. And someone was there, was like, "That's a big boat." I'm like, "There's even bigger ones." You end up doing that, and it's really hard because we have to be, successful. So, and I like that perspective that Lawrence brought to it, but how do you work to maintain that perspective? When you're around, because you have to be around, you have to be around successful people, and it's better to be around people that are more successful.
Yeah. Well, even just talking about people, I think that there may be 2 different groups of people that we hang out with because I don't think that this is super common yet. I hope it is someday, but there may be those folks that are the strivers that are always pushing you to be at the top of your game. And they are exciting and they're inspiring because of the amazing things that they do in their life and their business. But I don't know that those folks are everything. Like, so let's say there's another group of people who maybe have had some hard knocks. Maybe they've lost, built it up and then lost it, or dealt with a cancer scare, or dealt with a relationship, coming to an end, or losing someone really important to them. But these deeper thinkers, these people that question the assumptions, that can make sure that you come back to like a grounded, centered place that help you explore the idea of fulfillment and meaning in your life, and catch you when they notice that you're sort of running off and you might not fully understand what the end goal is in what you're doing, because we could spend 10, 5, 10, 15 years chasing after things that don't bring us the happiness we seek. And so it's that balance. I feel like it's really about finding the balance.
It is, yeah. Oh, definitely. Um, so when you think of abundance and the things that you want, you were talking about like the camper and things like that. I know you talked about like visualization techniques. How are you deciding what you want?
Yeah. I'm at a very different stage than a lot of people. Like, I have, I'll say, checked all the boxes. My husband and I have enough money to take care of us for the rest of our lives if we're careful. Like, I am in a very different stage. I just want to say that. So, for me, there is very little that I want. There are plenty of things that I enjoy, and
Mm.
I really do see them as different. Enjoyment is the top priority. Wants are really kind of silly things that come and go depending on what season it is. I prioritize joy in every decision. So for us, it's like travel and freedom and choice and ability to live wherever we want, and questioning like every assumption. We just got back from New Zealand, and when we were there, we're like, gosh, what would it look like if we immigrated here? And we just played with the idea. Not that I think it's going to happen, but what I realized is like, it was like a total beginner mindset, like restarting your life in a new country, or just completely letting everything go. And I realized that that stimulated parts of my brain that really wouldn't happen unless we asked ourselves those questions. Maybe we come back and we don't do anything different, but because we're willing to be like an absolute beginner, we find new aspects of life that can bring us more joy. So that's just what's coming to me in the moment. The book, I want to say, is written to people in their 30s and 40s who are still trying to figure this stuff out for themselves. Mirabelle's 34 and her friends are in that age range. Like, I really wanted to create something that I wish I had when I was younger, because I could have saved a lot of time and money.
I love that. And so when you talk about the book, and there's little questions at the end of each chapter, um and how do you look at people using the book? Is it read it, go through it, or do a chapter at a time? How do you see the best way to use this?
Yeah, I've seen it two ways. And so I've given advance copies to people like yourself and others, and most of the people are just reading it all the way through, and it serves its purpose in that way. But I wouldn't say that's like the perfect way. The perfect way would be how it got created, when I first created it, I worked with 100 people in my community, and I literally wrote the book with them getting one chapter at a time, and we'd all come together and talk about the chapter, and they had journal questions. So I have a couple thousand pages of journaling exercises that everyone did, and they would give me their journaling, and then I would use that to help write the next chapter because I could see what was coming up for them. So if you want to get the most out of the book, one person might read it all the way through and be like, okay. Another person might read it, pause at the end of the chapter while they're inside of the emotional experience of what's going on, write out the answers. Like, okay, I am kind of like Maribel, and this is what I saw. Because when people do it that way, whether it's read it through, go back, do it the second time with journaling, whatever it is, but if you do not answer those journaling questions, you will likely not have the same level of transformation as I was witnessing by people reading the book and only getting it like chapter by chapter as they turned in their journaling.
What were some of the most surprising transformations that you saw?
First of all, I was shocked at how many people came back and said, "You're writing my story." I was like, "Well, what?" Because this person doesn't really exist. It was made up, but they're like, every single thing is happening in my life or has happened. So that was one thing, just that people felt seen by the book. So some of the big shifts that I noticed is one person coming to mind. Uh, she's been in this is a second relationship for her, partnership, and the book helped her notice how different she and her partner are about money, and that the tension and the struggles that they have run into were they seemed really big, and she had concerns, but reading the book helped her to have more honest conversations with her husband about the challenges that were happening. And in the end, they were able to come out of the experience with a much deeper relationship because they were talking through these challenges. And in the book, Mirabelle pushes back against her husband's sort of control and frugality. But that could be flip flopped. It doesn't, you never know which partner might be the one. But a lot of times people come and tell me, I'm one way and my partner is another way. And we're struggling to find the middle ground. And this book is exploring that inside of the story.
Well, yeah. No, it's interesting 'cause, you definitely see that in people, and you see it in different people, and it affects the way we make decisions, and and it affects our businesses too. I mean, I know I see that, and across the board. And as you're telling these stories and writing these stories, um, what you know, what's your ultimate goal for everyone that reads this?
My ultimate goal is that people find a way to gain more freedom from the constructs of what we've been told about money and what we think is supposed to happen. So when we feel more free, we end up creating more enjoyable, fulfilling, you could call it abundant lives. So back to the journaling and what was happening for people, when people are able to go inside of like what's happened in the past and unpack it and give themselves grace and question the assumptions, especially around relationships that they have, because money and relationships, like they are very tightly intertwined with our parents, with our children, with our friends. Like it's fascinating. So ultimately at the end of the book, Mirabelle's having these realizations that she didn't have to make dramatic changes in her life to actually create the life she wanted. But without going through the process, she could have never gotten there. She had to go in the deep end and really ask herself these questions, explore these hard conversations. But on the other side, she was like, oh my gosh, this is the life that I've always dreamt of. I just didn't know that it was possible from where I was standing, 3 months ago.
Yeah. Um, and when someone's sitting there designing the life that they've always dreamed of, I think this is it's interesting because I've talked about it's how often we default to what we're shown, right? And that's what I like about this. I think this is important because we're marketing. This book is marketing someone's mind. It's not just teaching them. It's telling stories, which obviously stories transform it. Um, but how can we identify if the life we dreamed of is actually and the business that we want is actually someone else's idea of the business that we want or the life that we want?
Yeah, it is a great question because the first thing that comes to mind is that it's not like the life you wanna be living is some static thing that, like, once you get there, everything is perfect. It
Yeah.
changes as you change. Um, so I think we need to give up the whole idea or the attachment that it's a, like, destination. It's the
Mhm.
journey of what you're gonna go through and the breakthroughs and the realizations and the self understanding that's going to cause you to understand what it is you really want. And a lot of it is dropping away what isn't important to and leaving you with remnants of like, oh, and this happens, right? For Ethan, Mirabelle's husband in the book, he's kind of resisting the whole thing for a while. And then they end up having this party where their friends come. And it's not till the end of the party where they've asked their friends to talk about these sort of abundant experiences in their lives. And at the end of it, Ethan's like, "Oh my gosh, I didn't even I didn't even know it was about putting myself in these like risky, athletic oriented activities that fill me up. Like I haven't done it in years. I've been so focused on building my business, I let go of like the Tough Mudder or the triathlon or what have you." And he's like, "Now I see that this is something that brings me a great deal of joy. I need to bring it back in to my life." And Maribel has the same thing happen with painting. And it's not until you're kind of in the process that these things start to reveal themselves that like, hey, this is missing and it's important to you. Why don't you just see if you could bring it back in?
Yes. No, it's finding those things, right? And discovering. I like that idea of getting rid of stuff that's not necessary. And this has been fantastic. And so, and also it talks about coaching and having a community around you. Tell us a little bit about working with you. How do you help people beyond just reading the book?
I have been coaching business owners and leaders for 11 years now. And I've it's morphed and shift over time. And even this book has kind of brought me full center to like, okay, what do I want to do? I've found that when people they're already at this stage of self awareness where they've already done quite a bit of work, but they're ready to really, I don't want to sound cliche, they're ready to be seen as who they want to be or who they are becoming rather than all the stuff. There's something magical in coaching at that level. And it's a longer term relationship. It's like getting into like all the nitty gritty, like the stragglers of things that we haven't totally brought into the fold of like, who am I and what is this life all about? And so I just coach a few people now who often business owners or very, very, successful in the companies that they lead in, and they're like, nothing is left out. Like, I'm not afraid of looking at anything. And they know because of the work that they've done, the reward is there. It's just a matter of finding the aspects that are still sort of not being paid attention to. And it's coming into wholeness. It's coming into wholeness and making sure that every single aspect of their life is in alignment. Relationships, money, how they feel about themselves, how they feel about the world around them. Like it's the whole kit and caboodle.
Fantastic. And okay, so we'll put a link to the book, moneycatalyst.book.com. Where should everyone follow you?
I am on Instagram at Leisa Peterson, Leisa Peterson, Facebook. Yeah, I have Mindful Millionaire YouTube channel. There's lots of places. You put my name in, I think you're going to find a lot of stuff.
What's your favorite platform right now that you enjoy using?
Right now, I've been back to Facebook, which is so funny. But YouTube, over the past year, I had a video. I think I sent it to you, like go viral, and it reinvigorated YouTube for me. And I was talking about the story of leaving my job as a financial advisor. And who would have thought that that would take off? But it reinvigorated YouTube for me.
Awesome. Well, keep it up. And thank you so much. We'll make sure to put all that in the show notes. Thank you so much for sharing this and being on here.
Thank you, Ian. It's been so great.
Yeah, Lisa, thank you. And thank you all for making Lisa and I part of your story. This has been Iron Garlic and the Garlic Marketing Show.